Jeff.
All right.
Hello. Welcome back, everyone. My name is Amber King. I am your co-host tonight with Rhonda Walker. We're with Our Revolution, Washington Bernie Kratz, and this is our weekend retreat. We are lucky enough today to have a presentation by WolfPAC. So we have Jeff Eidenes, who is the communications director, and Martin Talaricio, I hope I said that correctly, as organizer. And if he's joining us later, we'll have Colin Carlson. Welcome, you guys. How's it going?
Excellent. It's great to be here. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. So we've got us on Facebook Live, and we'll be sharing that out across the interwebs. And would love you to use your Q&A function to ask questions, and look forward to your presentation on what's going on, how we can help organize and make anti-corruption change.
Great. Thank you, Amber. I'll let Jeff take it away. Thank you, Jeff.
Cool. So let me make sure I'm doing this right. And oh, ta-da!
Looks great.
Technologies. All right. So thanks for joining us, everybody. My name is Jeff, and I live here in Washington State. I've lived here my entire adult life, and I've volunteered for WolfPAC since 2013. I mean, my cousin has literally got his he's a doctor. He's a full-on got his medical degree in the amount of time that I've been working on campaign finance reform. So, you know, I'm really happy to be here and seeing all these folks from different groups working towards pretty much the same end, just a government taking care of our own people. So, and that's what WolfPAC's really about. So I guess I'll just kind of get into it so we can leave time for questions afterwards. So let's see if I do this right. Okay, there we go. So most folks on this call probably know this guy. He founded WolfPAC. Although he doesn't really have anything much to do with us today. You know, he started us because he got tired of just reporting on all of the corruption that was happening. You know, he wanted to give his audience something to do. There was no way to fix it in Washington, D.C. So he was trained as a lawyer in his previous career, and he spent 3 years researching, you know, what can we do about this? He went to conferences and met with other groups, you know, other democracy groups working on the issue. And, you know, so basically he came to the same conclusion that Cindy talked about just earlier, was that we need to have an amendment because it's the only thing that can go above, you know, our runaway Supreme Court and solve this problem in the long run. So as most folks on this call probably already know, there's only 2 ways to get an amendment to our Constitution. So either 2/3 of Congress can propose one, or 2/3 of the states can demand a convention so that they can get together and they can propose an amendment themselves. So the important thing to remember about this, you know, this whole thing is that regardless of which of these 2 ways that the amendment gets proposed, it still has to be ratified, and it has to be ratified by 38 states. So whatever they propose, either through Congress or through the states, it's got to be pretty popular. So it's also important to note that most of the amendments in our nation's history have included a campaign for an Article 5 convention. The Bill of Rights and 4 of the last 11 amendments, 4 of our last 11 amendments came about because of pressure. Oh, how did this go? I messed up everything. See, I'm such an expert at this. I don't know how it works.
Well, we approve of your ringtone, so thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad somebody likes it. Oh, here we go. There's that. Tell the screen share that I want to screen share because computers are smart. Are we back to normal?
Beautiful.
Okay, then. I like it. So Basically, in addition to all the work folks have done behind the scenes, this has been going on, pressuring Congress to do the right thing. So, the 17th Amendment is a good example of this, and we'll get into that later on. But, we can basically use history as our guide. Well, I guess when I said later on, I meant right now. So in the early 1900s, folks wanted to be able to elect their senators directly. And Congress was the last body of government that was going to give that change to the folks, because that was how they got elected. It's sort of similar to what we have now in terms of Congress wanting to retain their power. So the states took it upon themselves to do something about it. They started calling for a convention one by one for this specific purpose of direct election of senators. And they were one state shy of getting the 2/3 needed. And all of a sudden, what do you know? Congress proposed an amendment. So it works. History shows us that it works. And it's required. I mean, as part of any campaign to force Congress to move, it's just required. So so this quote here came just 3 weeks after we passed in our first state. When we passed in Vermont in 2014, chair of the United States Senate Judiciary Committee, Patrick Leahy, basically said, it's time for Congress to follow the lead of the states and propose an amendment. This bill had sat in Congress for years and years and done nothing and had not moved and not gone anywhere. And all of a sudden, what do you know? It comes up for a hearing. So it works. Congress listens, they pay attention. And this is one of the things that their donors can't quite control, because it's the people, it's us, the people at the state level. So yeah, so that's Senator Leahy. He's a smart guy. So the issue of fixing the corruption in DC is really popular, on both sides of the aisle. It's really the most cross-partisan thing in the world. And that's the big reason why we saw Bernie on the left and Trump on the right, rise up in the last election, was because when Bernie said getting money out of politics and Trump said draining the swamp, they were really saying the same thing, but using different words. So, excuse me. So, the American people get it. And we know that we have to fix this. So I'm not going to go on and on and on about the issue of money in politics, because we know it's all broken. So, with regards to a convention, and this resolution, one question just keeps coming up over and over and over again is, can you limit the subject? What if it runs away? What if something scary happens? What if they decide to make guns mandatory in schools or something? But the thing is that we know that you can limit it because Congress is constitutionally required to call a convention upon application of the state legislatures. And since then, there have been hundreds of applications from the states on a variety of issues, and from 49 of the states. Hawaii is the only one that hasn't applied for a convention yet. So, if you could just take these ones and those ones and add them together, like right now, folks beat the war drums about the balanced budget amendment. It's been stuck at 20-something, 26, 27 states for the last decade and a half. Like, it hasn't budged. And there's also the Convention of States Movements, which wants to have a balanced budget amendment, term limits on Congress, and to limit the power of the federal government. And they have 11 states. And then WolfPAC, we want, campaign finance reform, and we have 5 states. So that's 38 states right there. They would be constitutionally mandated to call for a convention if they could just scoop those all up together. But they don't, because they can't, because they know that the whole point of getting 2/3 of the states is to have consensus. And if there isn't consensus, well, then there's no point to having the convention. And it's just a false premise. And, at that point, it just has no legitimacy. So And you don't have to take my word for it. I'm just a guy that knows how to read. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a legal scholar beyond what reading all the legal scholarship, but the Department of Justice has determined this, the American Bar Association, the Congressional Research Service, and they all agree that the states have the power to limit the topic to whatever they want. I think Washington State's very, very first, I need to look this up because someone told me this the other day. Washington State's very first convention application was for any and every subject, which is a thing, I guess. That's an option. But like the fact that they had to say that meant that they knew that they could limit it. So, like I said, I have to go look that up. But, we're not looking for that. We're not looking for what's called a omnipotent convention. We don't want to just propose random. We want something that's going to return the, will of the people back to the halls of Congress. So, anyways, anybody that's propagating, these myths about the runaway are really doing a disservice. They're really hurting democracy. And I'm sorry if you feel that way, but I would encourage you to ask us questions, if you think if you're really afraid, because there are answers, and we have lawyers that can get into the weeds, and the weeds go deep. So it's interesting. It's interesting matter. How you want to go about it, but there are answers. So it's not all as many question marks as people seem to think. So what is the bottom line? What is WolfPAC? What are we going to do about it? These basically are our fundamental points. This is what it comes down to. So, urgency is the first part of our bottom line. Like, you name it, money has to do with it, whether it's COVID, private prisons, the EPA, like money is everywhere. So, this issue is far too urgent to not do everything in our power to solve it for our children or to not solve it for our children and grandchildren. So, the amount of critical issues that are affected by this are limitless. So we have to act now. Urgency is what forces us to have to use every tool in the democracy toolbox. And the Constitution gives us this one. And only because the founders debated it at length, saw the wisdom in it. And, basically this was the power for when Congress became recalcitrant to the will of the states. So they didn't just do it willy-nilly, and they didn't do it thinking that we were going to just overturn the apple cart with it. So they were at a convention. They knew what conventions could and couldn't do. We just don't have time to lose. That's the first part. So the second part is the historical precedent. And part of this I talked about is that most amendments to the Constitution, including the Bill of Rights, included a push for Article 5 convention. Like before the Constitution was even fully ratified, states were applying for an Article 5 convention so that they could get the Bill of Rights. And that's when Jefferson was like, okay, here we go. And they wrote that up, and they proposed the Bill of Rights, to try to stave that off. So it's something that the states can do to get Congress to act. And we've seen it happen multiple times. It's just part of the toolbox, like protests, state level reform, asking Congress, and we also demand a convention. So it's just one piece of the puzzle. And then courage. This is the really, this is the tough part. We refer to it like a multi-pronged approach. And legislators also, they use a rational process of risk analysis with every piece of legislation, so it's, part of our assessment that the risk of not using every known tool in order to end the corrupting influence of money in our political system is just a risk that we're not willing to take. And that's why we need to get our state legislators to realize that they're the only folks in our society right now with the power to get an amendment going, because Congress is the other set of folks, and they don't seem to have the power to do much of anything to touch this issue right now. So like with HR1, I think that's lovely, and I think it's terrific, and I think that it should be passed. I just don't give it very good odds, getting through the process, and that's and that's a problem, because who doesn't like that bill except for partisan, shills. So yeah, it's unfortunate, but this is where Congress is, and their hands are tied one way or the other. So it's time for us to force them to act, and this is the one way that we as non-significant donors can do it, and I really like this quote, courage isn't the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. It's action despite fear. So that's what I appreciate, is because, yeah, there's a lot to be afraid of right now. Every day, our country seems to, it inspires me to worry, I'll put it that way. So, it's whenever Americans have gotten their rights, it's because people have led with courage, whether it was women, getting the right to vote, or folks in the LGBT community, just standing up for themselves. It just took them being courageous. I mean, I say just, but it was the start, and we can do the same thing. So we can solve this problem. Because it's up to us. So, we can stand as Americans, and like a lot of people see us as super polarly divided right now. And there's some truth to that, but I mean, it's just the most ironic, and normally I'm a fan of irony, but it's the most ironic thing ever that folks are so polarly divided because they want the same thing. They want reform. They feel a lack of efficacy in being able to determine, the course of their own lives, and they're doing whatever it is that they know how to do to achieve that. So a lot of folks have retreated back into their team-based, we don't have team sports, so now we have politics, and now everything is a social thing. But, this is our responsibility, and this is something that we can do. This is something that we have the power to end, the corrupting influence. And the fact that HR1 is getting as much momentum as it is, the fact that it can get these steps that it can get through the House, that's powerful, and that's why we need to just press from all the directions. And that's why, I love seeing volunteers from other organizations, because there's multiple paths to the top of the mountain, but like the view is the same no matter how you get there. And this problem, it just has no silver bullet. So, just imagine, each of us doing this, working together, and at the very least supporting each other's path, how quickly we could get this done, or get the things that drove us to campaign finance in the first place. Nobody cares about campaign finance. Well, not nobody, some people do, but like almost nobody cares about money in politics. What they care about is an issue that they were stymied by who the donors were, whether it's labeling food or, like I said, we talked about the issues. Everybody has a reason. So, this is our opportunity to not just make progress on our front. What excites me is that once everybody learns, what they can do to, like, before WolfPAC, I didn't know which legislative district I lived in. I didn't know who my legislators were. I didn't know how any of it worked. And now I'm, a director of a state political action committee, trying to help shepherd legislation. It's not rocket science. Normal people can do it. So, and I think the Bernie Kratz know that. I think that's why we're here. So, I guess where I'm going with this is that last point there. Let's let history, guide us as we support each other, and just try to get this done. So, yeah, so like I said earlier, WolfPAC has 5 states. We're looking to make Washington the 6th. So, you know, that's 10% of the states right now, which I don't know. I like saying it that way. 10% is a whole lot better than 5. So we only have to get to 2/3. So, you know, we're getting there. But you know, we have to continue to pile. You know, Washington State can be state number 6, and we can make it work. So, gosh, let's see here. So, I guess in the end, our ask would be just to go and comment on the bill. There's a link here, and I don't know if you can add a thing to the chat for me, Marty. Post those links, or I guess it's being streamed on Facebook. So yeah, we have those 2 links. Just go to the ledge.wa.gov, find SGM 8002, and comment on it, and let your legislators know that this is important for all of us. And you know, COVID just ripped the facade off the rot that all of these other issues, you know, all these other issues had. So it's really as simple as that. And this is one of the vehicles we can use to get there. So was I supposed to take up the entire 45 minutes, or hopefully we can fill the time with questions? I mean, there's a lot to talk about.
Yes, you do have Q&A time. You don't have to just be you that full time. So
I like that better. I like that so much better than listening to myself drone on.
Yeah, we want to make sure that you're able to get it all, you know, out. And then, yeah, we can have it opened for Q&A. There's a box people can use, or you can use the chat, or if you raise your hand, if you want to ask verbally, I can allow you to speak as well.
Okay, let me remember to relinquish control here. Yay.
I'm going to go ahead and get those links in the Facebook as well. Does anybody have any questions? I know we had some. Lael, did you want to? Oh, before I even opened it. Lael White says, "Hi Jeff. Wouldn't passing HJR 48 essentially do the same thing by redefining persons as not corporations and speech not being money?"
So those would be steps. However, I think that we can win this. I don't think that those are necessarily prerequisites. You know, like I'm willing to say speech is money, and I'm even willing to say corporations have some rights, but we can limit those rights. Like you can't yell fire in a theater. There's limits to speech. And the limits on political speech are the loosest, but we can still have those, you know, it's legitimate. However, so even if we got rid of those, if we said money isn't speech and corporations are not people, it would still allow campaign donations, you know, it would allow all kinds of political action committee behind the scenes stuff. Like Cindy said, it's really a series. It's like a Jenga stack of court decisions all built on top of each other. And Citizens United was really just the one that ripped the lid off the can and made the hole wide enough to fly airplanes full of money through. So it's really just one of the things that needs to be dealt with. And one of the things that we like about a convention is that it allows the states to talk about all the different ways, because there's more than one way to address campaign finance reform. And, you know, the idea is that the delegates would go and we would anticipate them to, you know, debate and synthesize, you know, the best thing that has the best chance of passing 75%, you know, that's 38 states. The Equal Rights Amendment didn't even get ratified within the time limit. So it's got to be good, you know, for it to be ratified in any kind of timely fashion. So I'm sorry, that's a long answer, but it 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 would help, but it wouldn't stop the problem, I don't think.
Thank you, Lael. Hopefully that answered your question. Looks like Sharon put something in here about a proposal to the amendment to the Constitution that supports overturning Citizens United, but goes beyond that. It has to do with environmental, economic, and social justice. Have you seen that? Or Sharon, do you know the number, or do you want to speak a little bit more instead of just putting it in the chat?
I just put that in there because I've been a member of this group for quite a number of years called the Network of Spiritual Progressives. And I was one of the people that helped work on this very thorough, I mean, it's very comprehensive proposed amendment to the U.S. Constitution. So it supports overturning Citizens United, but it really goes way beyond that. It really presents a vision for the kind of world we want to see. And so it's, very visionary and idealistic, and let's put it in our sights, because this group is all about creating a world of love, kindness, generosity, and justice. And it's just really, it's a terrific group. It was started by Rabbi Michael Lerner, who was one of the Seattle Seven, I guess. He has some history in Seattle, but he's very progressive, and he's a social psychologist. He was a social psychologist before he was a rabbi, and he went around the country asking people, if you could have a world of love and kindness and generosity, would you want that? And the people in New York and California said yes, but those people in the heartland, forget about it. They'll never go for it. And then the people in, Kansas and rest of middle America said, well, of course we want that, but those people on the coast, they're so self-centered. So
Sharon, I love that idea. I'm going to give you my email address for anyone that wants it to give me more information. And I'd love to connect with you on that. Put it in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions at all? I know we were focusing on democracy this last hour and a half. So, and getting money is out of yeah, you have your hand up, Martin?
yeah. Oh, go ahead, Martin.
No, it's just coming on you, seeing your hand, Sharon. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I guess this is probably not an easy question to answer either, but I'm just wondering about ways, because we have some very good strategies of ways that we can do more to kind of hold people emotionally when we're talking about making major changes, because any kind of change is scary, even if it's good change. And we're pushing for it. We really want it. I think a lot of people are just afraid of change or afraid of being disappointed, and there's the fear of the pain of disappointment. One more disappointment, I can't bear one more disappointment. And a friend of mine had said that that cynicism is the intellectual side of despair. And I just wonder what we can do to really help people to, move forward emotionally.
I have a thought on that, actually. So one of the ways, before becoming a political organizer or a community organizer, I was a network engineer. I was a programmer. And the reason I did that was because I did not know how to navigate people's egos. I knew how to navigate networks, but I couldn't navigate people. And so the thing that I found in my work with WolfPAC is stories, telling our stories of self and working on that, because you can tell people charts and graphs and numbers and figures and stuff all day long, but until they get it, until there's like some empathy or some human connection, and you see it all the time, both in conservatives and progressives that like seem to work against their own best interest until it affects them, and oh, now I get it. And so that's why one of the things we try to encourage our volunteers to do is to develop a relationship, like talk about sports with your legislator. It doesn't have to all be policy related. And that way when you bring up policy things, you're part of their tribe, you know, and you tell them, you know, I'm here because of, you know, such and such, or, you know, whatever your story is. And those are the things that legislators love hearing. You know, they can hear policy wonks all day long and they just go to sleep. But when legislators come in, or not legislators, when constituents come in and tell them, this is my story, this is who I am, this is what I need, this is the help that you can give me, that's when they light up. That's when they're like, oh man, I can do, they feel important. And so just empathy, work on developing empathy, I guess is the short answer. Sorry for taking so long.
No, that's a great point, Jeff. I'll tell a story of, you know, with WolfPAC, we've been working on this for a number of years. And one of the great things about WolfPAC is the volunteers that we have. And it's a very diverse group, and everyone does have their own story, and we're encouraged to share our story. When 2 years ago, we were lobbying my district, the 34th West Seattle Burien White Center, Sharon Nelson, to support our memorial. And we canvassed West Seattle for like 3 or 4 weekends. And we collected like 250, 300 letters from constituents, signed letters, and delivered them to her office. And she still didn't bring the bill forward. She still wouldn't hear us out. And I was so despaired at that point. And then I believe Jank actually called her out on that on TYT. Joe, she decided not to run for re-election because her sister had cancer. And I don't know if that's the truth, but whatever the reason was, but she did. And Joe Wynn decided to run. And I was really torn with who I would support until I read an article in The Stranger that endorsed Joe Wynn. And it said that he was not taking corporate money. And so I reached out to him and I called him and he said, where do you live? And I told him where I live. He goes, well, come on over. Because I said, I want to volunteer for your campaign. I'd like to pick up a couple yard signs. And he said, well, where do you live? And he said, well, come on over. And so I did. And he lives not about a mile away. And I need a walk. I'll just take a walk. And I walked over to his house, and his daughter answered the front door with her in her little outfit. She was in a ballerina outfit. And I asked to speak with her father, and she said, well, he's at the bathroom. I said, I could wait. I'm Marty, I can wait. And so he came out, and we talked in the front yard, and I told him my story. And we really connected, and I wanted to hug him, but I didn't, because I wanted to show respect. But when I went to leave, he hugged me. And from that point on, we've had this connection. And so that's just a story I want to tell, that it really is important to share our stories, and also be respectful and to listen to other people's stories as well. But it's been a real emotional roller coaster with us. We've had volunteers that have said, like 1 or 2 years ago, like, I can't take this anymore if we don't pass again. You know, I can't do it. And it's okay to take a break, to take a step back and take some time off too. We have to remember that, and to take care of self, because it's tough. It's tough. Anything worth fighting for has never been easy. But I feel in my heart of hearts that this is a fight, and I fight with it spiritually as well. But I think as long as my heart is in the right place, and I take ego out of it, and I act out of a place of love, it all seems to come together. And it may not be on my time frame, but it doesn't mean it's not worth fighting for. And I had an incident with, I'm also involved with Cell Indivisible, and I was trying to get their support, and I'd end up not getting it. And they said something like, well, it's just too hard. And I said, well, it was hard landing a man on the moon too, but we did it. But maybe next year, they'll support it. So if we don't pass this year. But anyway,
so we 100% believe in really being able to tell your stories as our revolution as the Bernie-crats, because we totally understand that. And earlier today, we had a 2-hour session of walking through how to tell your story. This had to do with healthcare, but money and politics, as you know, and corruption all play a part, and really focusing on who are we really up against? It's all of us against these big corporations, really, walking through that. So those that weren't able to make it to that one, if you're interested, just email us at WashingtonBerniecrats at gmail.com, and we can look at putting another session together. And also to you guys too, if we want to partner up and be able to walk through and help people draft those stories. And then Roar Media is helping us getting those recorded. So we can start getting those pushed out more. So I think that it would be a good partnership if you guys are open to that.
Sure. Sure, yeah. That'd be awesome. I look forward to doing that with you.
I love telling stories. Yeah, sign me up.
Woo. All right, anybody else have any questions? If we don't have a whole lot, we can end this early. That's not a big deal. We just want to make sure everybody had enough time to hear all the things they need to hear to be able to get on board and go forward. And then of course, where they can find you at, best ways to volunteer or get involved, and all that good stuff. You want to make sure everybody knows that. If nobody else has anything else.
Sure, I'll try to share that in the link right now.
Yeah, my info is pretty easy. It's just jeff@wolf-pac.com. So.
Ooh, we have people saying they're on board. Wonderful. So thank you all for joining us again today. I know we've done a couple of meetings together, but anytime we can get more information out to the people, especially Washington State specific, we want to help out with that. So we appreciate you. And Sharon and Mike, I know on this one, we didn't hear the corruption song, but I just want to thank you guys again. It was at the end of the very last one for providing that. Love it. And I think we're good. All right. So at 6 o'clock, we'll get ready to go live again. We're gonna be looking into the Washington Strong Act. Sharon is a big part of this and was able to get Representative Deborah Linkenoff and Senator Liz Lovett to join in. Am I missing? Oh, go ahead.
Deborah Lickanoff and Liz Lovett.
Lovett. Thank you. See, this is why Sharon is heading up this section. So please watch out for that live stream to come. Otherwise, you can still join in the back end here in Zoom with the links for the whole weekend. Thank you all and have a fabulous evening.
Great. Thank you, Rhonda and Amber and everyone for hosting us. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.